All right, gather around. Welcome. Welcome. Come on, don't be shy. Come on down. Closer. Close. Too close. So we're going to give Max a haircut because he needs one. He's come a long way. If you're going to look at this haircut, what would you do? Where does your mind go? Where does your eyes wander? That's what I always think when I cut hair. Because it's more than just a haircut. It's more than just making it short. It's about how are you going to change the shape and complement the shape of his head with a haircut. Sometimes you need to grow things out. Sometimes you don't need to cut much off. But there's a million different ways to skin a cat, and you have to choose one. Yeah? It's fun. Wake some stuff up in your head like, oh, what the fuck is he talking about? That's literally what I think. I'll show you a picture of where Max and I started and where we're kind of going. It's horrendous, but what a shape can do for a person is crazy. Yeah. See? Remember that?
Yeah.
So this is literally just, this haircut has no shape. It's just the shape of his skull. Right? So that's fine. Like if somebody wants this, give them the haircut. It's their haircut. They're the fucking king. They're the queen. They're the whatever. They're the emperor. But what we can do, if you look at his shape now, you see how it's not so fucking rounded. It actually kind of cascades off of his occipital bone and gives his head some shape. But what it's going to do, especially in a guy, is it's going to accentuate his features. So it's going to make him look more handsome, more masculine. And then a lot of other great things happen because of it as well. As you see, it's squared here as well. So it's going to allow this hair here, which on Max has a really interesting kind of part line. It's going to help. His haircut's going to last longer. Everything's going to lay down. And it just looks really, really good. When it's rounded, he's going to look more like a boy. And when it's squared, he's going to look more like a man. And it's just sort of that, like, I don't know. I get really excited when I make this shape on somebody. And it really just kind of brings out their inner beauty. Is a really cheesy way to fucking say it. But you can look at somebody in the mirror and there's something happening. It's magical. You're like, what is that? It's that like key shape that you found somewhere that's locked in a haircut. They're all different. Sometimes, you know, he has a great head shape for a square. If he has a fucking head like Frankenstein, you probably don't want to give him a squared haircut because it doesn't look good. But for this particular skull, it's perfect. Max is going to be asleep by the end of this because it's going to be like an ASMR haircut. I promise I won't sell them. So the first thing I do is I'm always just going to wet the hair down just to kind of see what I can do or can't do, because I've learned the hard way is you never want to give somebody a haircut that their hair doesn't want to do. You have to listen to the hair. The hair will always win. I've spent far too long in my younger years of barbering trying to give people haircuts rather than giving the person what the hair wants to do. When you fight against it, it does not work. You have to like glue it into place, and you should never have to glue it into place. A product should only make the haircut look better. It shouldn't be necessary unless they want some crazy, you know, like a psycho coif or something like that. But I just fully saturate the hair, combing it in the direction that we want it to and the way that it will lay. Because you want it nice and wet so you can properly control it. And then don't be an asshole, dry them off a little bit. You don't need to cry during a haircut, right, Max?
No, just after.
Yeah, after is definitely the time to cry, not before. So because of the last haircut we gave him, we already have a pretty dramatic baseline lined up. So this makes things a little bit easier. But just for context, so to find where the head rounds, which is where you don't want to take clippers up any higher than that, you take a comb, put it to the back of the head and kind of rock it. So it'll show you roughly right there. So fortunately for him, he can take it short pretty high up before this starts to jump up. And it jumps up because it doesn't have enough weight, or it's not long enough, or it's combed in the wrong position. So before any haircut, I make sure that the parting is as perfect as possible, because that is a very, very crucial point. If you have hair that's down here, but it's supposed to go up here when you part it and you make that baseline, the hair's just going to immediately jump up and you're fucked. It's going to take like 3 to 4 months to fix that. So a good way to find the parting, I know you know this, but I don't know if you know this. It works on every single head because it's the geometry of the skull. You take your comb, you put it right to the hairline and just rock it around, and it's going to point right to where the head naturally rounds. You take your comb, and there we go. And then sometimes you got to kind of fix it towards the back, make sure it's as perfect as possible. Because mapping out your haircut is going to make your life significantly easier. Rather than going blind into a haircut and just starting to make things shorter, you kind of run into problems down the road, or you can anyways.
Can I see something?
Yes.
Just want to see how you did your content here.
So I use the spine.
You use the spine mainly, so yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so he has pretty much like a flat side of the head.
Yeah, he's got a really good head for these, like a traditional haircut.
How do you?
Because some people's has to be way lower.
Yeah, so okay, so you really follow, like if it's going like this, you go like this, like it's...
Well, like put it,
like really,
it'll do it with every haircut, right? Like literally just put it like literally straight, and then you're going to go around the skull, and it's always going to take you right to where it is. So that's like when you have that map where you know you can bring your clipper up to, where you know where the part is, you're already set. So if you weren't doing a side parted haircut, you would literally repeat the same process, and then you could make the horseshoe, and then you can work on the sides. You can do it a number of different ways, but I always kind of work on one side then the other, because a person can't look at both sides of their head at once. It's impossible. So you try to mimic both sides and make it look as clean, or whatever term you want to call it. So just to set up baseline, I'm just going to start with this big weighty area. And all I'm doing is combing into it, pulling out, over-directing a little bit in the front, and just cleaning up just the little bit that's in there. And I'm pulling it down to like a 45-ish degree angle because I want to leave that weight line, because that is where all the shape comes from. We can get the line out later when we're doing blending, but you want to set that in because that's a guideline that you can follow for the rest of the haircut. When you get around to like where the head starts to round in the back, you want to pull out right into your chest. Because if you cut it like this, you're going to cut this corner off, and then right here, the hair is going to start to jump up a little bit. So pulling out directly into my chest.
When you're treating it like a square, like a
exactly
90-degree corner kind of.
Right, yeah, because you don't want to cut it like too close around, because then you're going to look, it's going to look squared here, but when you get to this corner and he turns his head, it's just going to be like rounded all of a sudden. And then I'm going to step, create tension, pull down, and then I'm going to stop right when I get to the corner. And then you can kind of see it just looks the same, but it's just a little bit more of a refined kind of shape. So when I get to the crown area, this is how I always do them. I work in a pie shape. So I'm going to start right here. So I make a little section, comb this off. And I take the fine part of my comb just so I know I have a good amount of tension. And we're over-directing and pushing, I guess, towards the front of the face. And we're just taking this stuff off. Working our way down to the occipital bone. And what that's doing is leaving it longer here, but making it shorter here. So it's not going to be rounded here. It's still going to be nice and square all the way around the head. So you do it again. Make another section. Because this one is on the back of the head, I'm pulling directly out. I literally have my elbow locked into my ribs, so I can retain my posture, but also I know that this is custom to his head because it's on his occipital bone. Comb. Do it one more time here. Again, elbow is in my ribs. And I cut this way for ergonomics. because now my whole body is straight. If you cut this way, you look at your elbow and your wrist, you can't do that for 20 years. Your body's gonna give out. And then that's how I start the side. Now I'm gonna do this on 2 steps. So I'll do this, we'll do the top, and then I'll fade the side, and then we'll work on the other side. So as far as parting goes for the top, the one thing that I always learned is the way you section your hair is the direction in which you want the hair to go and the way the hair is growing. So we're doing a side part, it's going to the left, so we want to part it and section it on the left. So section. The crown area, you do not want to take much off because it'll jump up. So we're just kind of refreshing it a little bit. I always move the hair out of the way. And I am cutting this on a bit of an angle because it gives it more of an old school look. So it will be slightly like that, just a little bit. Keep moving forward. Again, we're not taking much off the top because we're actually growing his hair out again. But all of the unevenness and a bit of the shaggy stuff we'll get rid of. Same thing, just repeating all the way to the front of the head. And the way that his haircut was cut earlier was not even at all. So some parts, unfortunately, you'll see here are shorter than everything else. So I'm just going to leave that alone and pull up till we get to the bits that are too long. Second last piece before we get to the front. And when I always try to get as much tension as possible, because that means the more tension you have, the cleaner the cut is. So it means you only really have to cut it once. If it's really loose and you make that cut, that line in the hair is not going to look like this. It's going to look like this, which texture is good when you intentionally put it there. But if you're not intentionally doing it, you're just making more weight and bulk in the haircut, and the haircut will grow out not as well as we would like it to. Go to the front. I'm just pulling it straight up from the head to leave as much weight as possible. So now that that's done, I'm going to always, with every haircut, I'm going to cross-check everything. So I'm going to start, I'm just going to grab it in the middle, fine-tooth comb, cut whatever's sticking up. And with this haircut, it will just naturally be a little shorter here and a little longer here. Not much, but because the longest part of any guy's haircut for a barbered style haircut should always be at the front. Same thing, no sections, just kind of roughly grabbing the hair on the top just to make sure. That's good. So now we're going to do the fade and blending on this side. I'm going to dry it first because I absolutely hate working my clippers through wet hair. I just find it's not as clean, it's gunky, hair gets stuck all over the head, and it's not fun. So, where the fuck?
What are you looking for?
The primer. Oh my God. So, just some primer to give it a little bit more hold and structure when we blow dry it. You can blow dry a stronger shape as well. And if you want to over-exaggerate things, you can with this, that's what we're going to do because Max is cool like that. Right, Max?
If you say so.
Hell yeah. I always just kind of work it through the hair a little bit. Make sure it's all mixed up as best as possible. You know, you're on a time limit usually, so you don't have that much time to fuck around. But so for this, I'm going to start with the vent brush because it's going to dry things faster. And then second speed, high speed and medium heat. You want to move this around. Well, you guys know how to fucking blow dry hair, but how I do it, I move it around so I don't burn them, but I push the hair in the direction that I want it to go in, lift a little bit for some height. And I'll shake it like that sometimes when I find it's too wet. It just dries it a little bit faster. Because you'll burn them. Mine, this Dyson is fucking, the high heat setting will go to like 220 degrees. And I don't need that, but neither does Max. Too hot. This will, so I don't know if you know, Ty, so hair will react a lot like plastic. So when you heat it up, it becomes stretchy and malleable. So that's where you start to get volume. The only way scientifically that you can achieve volume is by hot air. So I'm gonna start achieving a little bit of volume because again, we're gonna have a little bit of fun. Go down to this side. So this all goes, I'm pulling it up and kind of pushing it forward. But for this side, everything's going to go up and then back. So with these sides, like I can kind of follow with my comb, and it just allows the hair to flow back a little bit easier. So you can see how this goes in, but that goes up. So we're going to pull. Just really accentuating what his hair already naturally does with those growth patterns. A lot of people with change of directions and whatnot hate it for themselves, but man, do they ever make old school haircuts look really cool. I'm gonna go back over on this side, and I don't know, I kind of pull up when I get to this side and it marries the two together. And then you kind of have one more cohesive look. And then the last thing is cold air. Because cold air, after you heat it up, is going to lock everything into place and keep that style all day long. And make the rest of the haircut for yourself a lot easier. Plus it makes the hair look more healthy. It gives it a nice shimmer, and the client will always be happy about that. And for crowns as well, when you hit it with cold air, instead of it looking all frizzy and whatnot, it's going to just control it and calm it down a lot more. Okay, so for fades, I always use a magic clip. And the first thing I will do, so we want to go with the shape of his head. So if you can kind of see, his occipital bone is down here. So we want to build weight off of here. But right now we're just kind of growing out this back. So what I'm going to do is start from the temple and make my way down here. But when I do fades, I'll never go up like this. I'm always going to invert my clipper for two reasons. One, I feel like it's easier to punch in that line. It's faster, but this also doesn't go directly to zero, so it's going to allow you, it's easier to blend out any lines. So it just all around makes your life a hell of a lot easier. So we're going to start, we're going to do like an arcing motion right from the corner of his temple there. Down to the bottom of his occipital bone, just like that. And then I'm going to go up and clean off the debris. Doesn't need to be perfect at first because this is kind of just a rough draft anyway. There you go. That's your first guideline set in of a fade.
Happy little line.
Yeah, oh, you can clean it up a little bit more. A happy little line, yes. And if you're lucky, you'll get into some happy accidents too. Yeah, probably. And I set in my guidelines by going up and then I fade down. It just makes sense to me. You can fade up, you can fucking fade sideways for all I care. It doesn't matter as long as you can do it and the client's happy. So I'm going to follow the same skin line. And when I'm making lines, I'm using all of my clipper. I'm really digging in. I kind of flick out a little bit because it's kind of helping you pre-blend things. It's not as harsh of a line, but still sits in a line. So you get your your 0, you got your 1, and then my 2. And I pretty much do all fades this way. Same thing, just scooping as I come out because it's kind of pre-blending it. Not going up too high. Make sure to flip off of the occipital bone so you don't drive the guard into the side of their head. There you go. Now I take my 1.5 guard. Keep it open because this is now a little bit longer than a 2, and then you can scoop pretty high up. The one thing with fades it took me a long time to realize is how high up do you go? So you can be pretty generous with this. Kind of move the ear out of the way. And then close the lever just a little bit. A little bit more. Fully closed. And all we've done so far is blend a 2 into a 1.5. So there's still lots of lines and whatnot. So I always look in the mirror because the mirror will always tell me the truth. Your eyes will play tricks on you. The mirror will show you every single imperfection that you can't see or don't want to. And then go to my number 1, which is open. And then this is where I start using just the corner of my clipper because less accidents happen that way. And where it really starts to kind of feel like an eraser rather than a clipper. And sometimes, I don't know, when I first started using the corners, I was like, oh, it's not doing anything. Just wait, it will. The more you go down the lever, the more hair it's going to start to take off. And now it's completely closed. Again, still going in just with my edges. Because you can't remove a line unless you use the number that you initially started it with. So that's why I'm still going in with my 1. And that's good. And then I'm just going to clean it off a little bit because we're now working with 0.5, so there's no guards, so you want it as clean as possible. And then go with 0.5. And this is again flicking, but also just using the corners. Closing it just a little bit. Just trying to disrupt that line as best as possible. And then now I go in with my 0.5 guard, 1/16, whatever you want to call it. So I gotta look in the mirror here. And again, I'm always going to look. So I can see that still a little, dusty here, not perfect looking, but that's what this guard's all about. This is your cleanup blade. So whenever, I don't know why, if it's just my clipper, but whenever I open it all the way, it actually doesn't take any hair off. I've done this for years, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you can, with Magic Clips, they're designed so you can hear the crunch as a crunch blade technology. So I just started off by closing it a little bit, so I'm not wasting more time. And then this, you can go up way higher than you think you can. Like, I'm going up way past my 0 line, and it's starting to refine a little bit of that, like 1.5, 1-ish area. And I'm only taking little bits off, but you only need to take a little bit off to really clean up an area. And I will go over like this area a few times before I put it down. And if their head has kind of got dents and grooves, you kind of got to like nestle your clippers in there as best as possible. Close it a little more. And then have a look. So yeah, not too bad for that little spot. Any questions so far? No one? Cool. So this is where I'm going to start doing some clipper over comb, and this is where I refine everything. You could do it with clippers if you want, but this is just sort of how I retain shape and really clean things up. So I'm going to start with this just because I know that this comb goes no shorter than a 2. And it allows me to really focus on the weight area here. But when you're doing clipper over comb, the wrong way is, if the head is, you're on this side, the wrong way to start here is to go like this. That's the wrong way, because you're making a square. So if you do this, you're going to cut off too much hair. So what you want to do is actually start on this side, and we're starting right here, right? If you're following your guideline, you have to start at the front. So comb it down, and then you want to place just this part on the round of the front of the skull, and then pull out. And that's what you're going to start with, and that's setting your clipper guideline. And then as you get in, you're just going to, every time you take a swipe, you're going to step. Comb down. Taking another step. So just to refine things, because like it looks okay, but so I go this way to remove bulk, but then I go up to soften and refine things even more. And I'm really digging the base of this comb into the head and pulling out, which is going to square things off and really polish everything at the same time. And it's kind of a visual thing, like it'll show you where you've cut, so it's like short there, long here. So you just, you know you're on the right track. And going in and refining. And like again, pushing into the head. You don't want to push too hard, but you need to actually get your job done as well. Then you calm down and have a look in the mirror, see what you're dealing with. Yeah, looks all right. So now I'm going to work my way around the skull. So same idea goes back here for for here too. When you're going around the skull, you don't want to do this because you're taking off too much hair and it's going to make it round. So I'm kind of only focusing like right here with my comb. And again, like it's just that's in there. I'm not cutting any of that other hair off. And that's going to allow me to retain a really squared shape. I haven't even gone into this yet. Comb down, refine a little bit. And then I'm going to take a step. Again, just this part, pulling out, and I see I've cut there, so I can cut this part. And then another step. And again, just the tip of my comb. And that is kind of how you get that like nice, I don't know, squaredness or even amount of weight around the head. Because a lot of people, when they get back here, I don't know what happens is they get too happy with the clippers and too confident, and they just start smashing all this hair off, which like looks like that's what you want to do, but to keep a really nice squared tailor haircut, it's not. The less is more back here. And the position of your body really matters too. Like if you're trying to do the back and like you're just kind of doing this, like there's no way that you can keep that comb on the right spot if your body is not right in front of it. Like you'll notice when I'm doing it, it's always, sorry, facing me like right in my chest, because that's going to keep everything even. And step again off the occipital bone. I always push their head down. Refine. Now that we're on the back of the head, so I can put the comb flat to the head because we want it squared everywhere. So once you put it flat to the head, that's now allowing everything to be nice and squared. Go and refine. Just polishing as much as we can along the way because it's just going to save you time in the end. My haircuts start off like pretty unpolished, and then I kind of like look at it. I'm like, what the fuck? How am I going to get myself out of this? And then I just keep polishing away as I go. So outside's looking pretty all right. So I put this down and then I grab this because I know that this is basically a number 1. If you put that directly to somebody's head, and I'm going to again start from the front, work my way back, and it's just any little hairs that kind of stick up. Those are hairs that should not be there and are making everything not look as seamless as possible. So still putting the comb directly to the head and pulling out, because if I go in, I'm not smoothing, I'm creating another line. So in and out. Much better. But I can see that right in this back, kind of where his mastoids are, which are right there, there's always a bit of dents. So if I can't get that out with my comb, sometimes what I'll do is I'll go sideways, and it's just sort of like cross-checking your fade. And if that doesn't work, trimmer and comb. And usually when you see a line in a fade, so there's still a bit one right there, but that means the weight up here is too heavy. So the line actually usually lives a little bit above the line, if that makes sense. I'm going to go in right there. Look in the mirror, yeah, it's looking pretty good. And then while I'm here, I'm just going to do the outline really quick. I like to make them nice and clean looking, but I also do them very natural because, I don't know, I don't think the whole world wants to look like they're in a rap video. So you have to pick your people. Some people like it, some people don't. I just do a pretty good job, but nothing crazy. Well, it's true. I've worked with a lot of people that like really fucking line people up, and unless they're like, "Hey man, line me up," like don't do it. All right, so that's fine for now because I'm going to work on the other side, and then we'll refine everything either more. You'll hear me say refine and polish a lot because that's really all a haircut is refining and polishing. Once your blueprint is in, which is like we're kind of almost done the blueprint. So on this side as well, you'll see how his hair actually like kind of pushes back. So clearly we don't want to take all that off because that's also making his hair squared. But it also adds some like, I don't know, some je ne sais quoi. Some cool guy stuff. So again, we're going to do the same outline. Using the occipital bone, or the base of the occipital bone is our position. Go in and clean everything up. I know. He's in, bud. He's in.
Administrative
BS.
Yeah, lots of BS.
Always clearing debris because a clean work surface, which is your client, is a happy work surface. This is all dumb shit that I was all told when I was new into barbering, and like it's fucking annoying, but it's so true too. You're like, ah, fuck, he's right. So again, just setting in my guidelines, 0, 1, 2, and then I'm going to blend through those. Number 2, flicking out as I get to my top just to kind of help blend everything into the bulk up there. And now it starts. I'm more focused right here than I am in the back because I'll do the back in its own kind of separate part. The back of the head is where the hair is most condensed. So you kind of got to do a little bit more with the edges of your clipper to kind of get rid of those dark spots. And now it's all closed. Again, so at the 1.5 is where I start really using the edges of my clipper. Just a few teeth at a time. get out that 0 line. Perfect. That's what you want to do. Again, just using 1 to 2 teeth for this part, because you can always remove more. You cannot put it back on. And again, it looks okay, but now we'll take the 1.5 guard and do some more polishing. Okay. Now we're just going with some blending, but I'm just going to do this outline first, just to get it out of the way. I like to do the bottom part and do the outline like kind of as fast as I can, because once that's done, I know I don't have to come down anymore. I can just work kind of my way up after the fade's done. So I work down with fades and then up with everything else, I guess. And you'll notice that I just keep checking the mirror all the time. I can't do a haircut without a mirror. I'm fucked. So we're starting on this same, the side part we're gonna do blending with comb, but again, we wanna keep this hair. This hair, when it's short, a lot of people again cut it off, but what happens when it's short is it grows back sticking out of his head. So the more length we keep, the more it's gonna lay down. So just coming in same way, just taking a little bit off. Making sure to step, or you can turn as well, whatever you want to do. And then going up. Just getting rid of those little hairs that are not making things look great. Always combing in the direction you want it to go in. We'll start back here. And then I'm going to turn again. I'm not going in like this. I'm going off the last place that I cut, which is right there, and then this is the length that I need to get rid of, or the bulk is. Combing again, working my way around slowly. And then polishing. Down to the back. So I'm going to get Max to put his head down. Thanks, bud. So again, just flat, because we've already kind of blended this side, so now we need to do the same. And I'm kind of moving again in a pie shape. semicircle, whatever you want to call it. Okay, and then I'm just going to blend out the rest of this real quick as well. Now that we're back there. And all I'm going to do is take my 1/16 because, yeah, it's just these two sides that are a little heavy. Just using the corners. Okay, looks fine for right now. And unfortunately, this is where a lot of people stop haircuts. And they're like, cool, you're done, man. What do you think? You happy? You stoked? Sick, man. Give me your fucking money and get out of here. But it could be way smoother. So again, refining. This is something I didn't do at first, but it was kind of beaten into me. That this is all very machined and very like rough looking. So if you take your shears to it, it's going to soften everything else up. It's going to help it grow out better, and it's just going to be better in the end. So just comb, shears. And I'm just going to keep looking in the mirror to where any areas that I see that are kind of uneven or like too dark. So there's some right here. So again, going with the shape of the head. Fast shears and a slow comb. Always be sure to comb down and see if you did anything, if you made it better or worse. Yeah. And there we got Max starting to look pretty sexy. Sexy old Max. Fun for the whole family. And then, yeah, the last step to blending is blending shears. With these, I don't know if you use them, you love them or hate them, but you don't, I was always trained that you don't want to go in directly like this. You kind of want to go in more of an angle. If you go directly into the hair, you end up putting some holes in it. And it's kind of hard to describe it. You'll see like a little chunk. It's not down to skin, but it's just like a kind of a blemish within the nice blend that you're kind of making. So also, you don't want to take off a lot of material. I only use these in wet or dry hair, because in dry hair, this will take off 35% of the hair, whereas shears will take off 100. But if you do it in wet hair, it'll take off 75% of the hair. So it kind of takes too much off. So I go in on an angle, and I want to hit this part too, because it's all too heavy. This is a nice ridge. It's a very beautiful guideline that kind of cascades along the head, but it's too much. You gotta do something. So you go in on an angle, and I'm just snipping the ends. You can already see it's still there, which is nice. You want to keep it there, but it's going to make it look a lot more softer. And that's called weight management. Still doing fast shears, slow comb. Just making sure to comb down, making sure it still looks good. You haven't fucked it up yet, which is great. And then making my way towards the crown or the rosette. Stepping again, because it's definitely too heavy right there. Check the mirror. Kind of tilt his head a little bit. Again, the back part is going to be the darkest and most concentrated part, so it usually requires a little bit more blending back here or removal of hair. Yeah, so that looks pretty decent. So we'll go on to the other side and repeat the same process. It's a little darker right there. But again, we don't want to take too much hair off. So I'm coming in on an angle like that. Nice. And then the same process. Just cleaning up any of the longer bits that we might have missed with clippers. And then head down again. Soften in weight lines. Now I'm going with blenders. And this is always a much faster, but using blending shears will add like another fucking 10 minutes onto your goddamn haircuts because you'll get so into it. So just going in, just snipping the ends and then going on an angle. I'm just going up because I can see it's sort of uneven right there. So just with the blending shears a little bit, help smooth everything out. Same thing, starting off at the bottom. And I'm working off the head. I'm not going into the head. I'm working off of it. I'll take it back. Put the head down. These combs are the worst. I don't know if yours does that, where they're fucking sharp and they'll actually dig into people's pores. I really wish they would dull them out a little bit. It's so annoying. I always feel so bad. I'm like, oh, my, like, it's the comb, I promise. I'm not, you're not being stabbed. Like, oh, who's that? I'm like, it's a fucking plastic comb, bud. All right. Looking pretty decent. But I can kind of see a line right there. So you have 5 million ways to deal with that. What I'm going to do just for education purposes is use a taper comb. If anybody has like a groovy or lumpy head, one of these things is going to be the best thing, because you can do like a really, really, really smooth fade, but then you see it's like, oh, it's kind of dark right there. So you can go in with the corner of your clippers and you can dig around, or you can take shears, a trimmer, or blending shears, and one of these, because they really, really bend into grooves. And this, like, you can really, like, see how that's what's creating that line right there. All these unevenness. So I'm just going to take my shears. And again, going up with the head, not into the head, because if you go in with the head, you're going to create a whole nother line. We're just trying to disrupt the line enough so it looks good. Yeah, looking better. And then again, I'm just going to do blending shears. Blending shears are a really good way to make fades look a lot better as well. Rather than just always digging away at the client's head with your clippers and trying to get every fucking line as smooth as possible and making their head all super red, like, this is a pretty quick and efficient way to deal with it as well. Yeah. Looking more icy, more put together.
Wispy.
Yes. Less wispy. Wispiness, huh? I'm going to clean up right there too, because I don't like the way that looks. And that I might do trimmer. All that is, though, like, it's blended. When you look at it on, it's blended, but when you look here, this is his mastoids and a little bit casting a shadow down here to make it like not look as blended. So you kind of got to fuck with the head a little bit, or fuck with the shape of the head and make things slightly shorter so that they blend more. Yeah, it's starting to look a little bit smoother. Yeah, there you go. Just kind of buffs out that little wonkiness. And then that is not too bad. So I'm going to go through the top now just to get rid of some bulkiness. This is where you can, like, really personalize a haircut, because they usually grow out bulky in certain areas. For him, for sure, the side, I would imagine the sides of your head get pretty bulky before up here it is. Sure. Yeah, it looks like it to me. So, this is just all visual now. Like I can see as I pull the hair back, that it's just kind of very condensed right here. So I'm going to just do the same thing, but I'm going to go through the top, and I'm angling the comb in the direction that I'm moving in, and just kind of grabbing the ends. And this kind of allows you to like personalize a haircut, but also allow the client's haircut to grow out a little bit better. You can just ask them, be like, you know, is there any spots of your hair that bother you after a couple weeks, anything that gets a bit bulky, and they'll like, either they just say, no, I don't know, or, oh yeah, this fucking spot, blah, 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 it's always right here. I'm going into the hair and then pulling it up in the direction that I want it to go in. And then if you want, you can even do the knuckle duster. You know what the knuckle duster is? No, you do. So you go in, and you're going to allow the hair to go through your fingers, and it's going to help show you where like all the bulky bits are. So just going in. And it's like a head massage for your client. But you will definitely fuck your knuckles up doing this. And it's just going to remove some bulk. That's all. So now what I'm going to do is re-blow dry it. Like I probably, sometimes I would do this when I'm actually like working. If it's like a cool old school haircut, I'll hit it again with a blow dryer, and I'll use my Deadman brush because that's more of a polishing brush than the vent brush. The vent brush is just going to quickly dry your hair, but it doesn't have much tension to it. A Deadman brush, you can really polish it and show the hair where you want it to go. And where I also just did a bunch of bulk removal. There's going to be a lot of little pieces of hair stuck in, so this is just going to help clean everything up in case he's got to go back to work or whatever. Nope, same high speed, medium heat. Because this is where if we want to get any more volume or anything like that, that's where we're really going to get it now. And this will also pull out wave and curl to a degree. And we're going to do the side part. I leave the front to last usually. And now I'm going to start using some cold air. kind of how you get a really old school shape. So with the front of Max's hair too is really cool for styling, because the front grows like this. So you can make really cool like old school shapes, pompadours, side parts, stuff like that. But we're going to put some stuff in, and then I'm just going to trim up his beard. Any questions before I put stuff in? Anything? Make sense? Makes sense? Explanations aren't too ridiculous? It's good just to see it, how it works, like, because we all cut hair differently. So none of it makes sense if you don't do it that way. You're like, what the fuck? Because making weight lines like that used to be super difficult for me to do. I would always cut them off because I'm like, nope, not blended, or I would always...
Well, technically that's what I have in mind, like this year, like I would have probably like automatically like tried to move this shorter.
Mm-hmm. So that's one thing I want to show you too, right? So you combed everything when you were looking at it, you combed everything forward. And when you do that, you can see more of a line, but that's because it's not meant to go back that way. If you look at his forehead, right, where his change of direction, his hair actually grows back. Backwards. So when you, comb it back, and then that line starts to disappear and it's much more blended. You always want to push the hair in the direction you want it to go before you start blending and refining, because you're going to end up, you'll waste time, potentially remove too much hair. And that's what I was talking about earlier with like that magic silhouette that you can make that really makes me happy, because it's accentuating all their features, but it's also like a completely tailored haircut to the individual, not for the masses. So for this, because he's got quite wiry hair, I'm going to put in some Claymore, because Claymore fucking rules.
Why wouldn't you put Super Shesh?
Because I want a little bit more hold. I want a little bit more grit. I typically don't use the Super Shesh on a lot of old school haircuts unless they have finer hair. Because I like the way that Claymore has that grit and hold to it, and it's going to really keep your hair where you want it to be, but you still have the ability to style it or put your hands through it. I feel like it's just a haircut that deserves some Claymore, you know. What is it in French? Fuck, that's awesome. I love that. Use a decent amount, probably more than that. Okay, you actually have to see, that's a big thing too with clients. They don't actually put, that's not really a lot. Like if you watch Ruzel videos, first of all, they're taking 2 fingers, because they always do. This is like half of a finger. This is not a lot of product. The product is really good, but you still have to fucking use it. When people, like guys come in, they have like this, like a literal frozen pea size amount. And they're like, I use the strongest stuff. And I was like, you don't even really use product. Like, you actually have to use an amount. Like, don't be afraid of it. It's good for you. This stuff, though, you got to really work in your hands. Warm that shit up. And then I'm always going to go backwards. And then I'm going to go sideways. And then I'm going to go forwards. And then backwards. And I'm going to do the double sideways. Because if you're only going one direction, you're only coating one side of the hair. That's where a lot of people, when they do their hair at home, clients will just go in the front and then that's it. I'm like, what the fuck did you only put it in the front? Like, you got to put it throughout the hair. I always use a pick because I find it's easier to get through a bulk of hair, and it also, when you put product in the hair, it takes time to set. So if you were to go in with like a fine tooth comb right away, if the product's not kind of set in the hair a little bit, all you're going to do is remove it. So you want to use more of a wide tooth. Again, I'm going to leave the front until after. Look, and I'm kind of going in that direction that the hair grows in. for this part. I'm always going to turn them. And then I'm going to come back in with this comb and just kind of refine everything. You could have a drinking game for how many times I said refine. But that's literally all haircuts are. Refine, refine, refine. I'm always just going to have my hands to kind of like hold it, because sometimes hair, when you push it in a direction, it wants to jump a little bit, so. And then we're going to do the front again. So starting right at where it's like Widow's Peak is. I'm going to turn his head a little bit. I just find it easier to do this. But we're not going straight back with this either. We're going kind of up and down, because that's how his hair grows. I'm going to check it from the mirror. Yeah, that's how I would style. Kind of a classic side part with a little bit of little boost in the front, you know, a little Well, how do you do, sir? And I'm gonna trim up his beard too. Do you know much about beards? You trim beards? Yeah. Okay. I don't need to tell you anything here. Fucking.
I can't even fucking see a thing, so
Well,
it's not gonna be.
it's probably for the best, man. A blurry haircut always looks better.
It's like an oompador.
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 So, with the beard, I'm gonna kind of fluff it out a little bit. He's growing back parts, so we're just not doing much. We're just kind of tidying it up. I always use magic clip because I just find it's sharper. So with this, again, there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but I always like to do this. I turn the client's head towards me, and now it's going to show me all of the hairs that are sticking out. But as I go in with my trimmer or clipper or whatever the fuck you're using, because you can see down, you're going to go down. When it's up, you can go in. When you go in, she fucked. She gone.
I can recline them a bit and go from the back.
Yeah, that works too.
See the profile and just like wrap out anything that's kind of just sticking out.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm always going to use the mirror to make it as square as possible, because that's also going to accentuate the jaw too. I'm going to do a little bit of blending.
Well, I mean,
It's gonna target Barber. It's gonna target Barber on YouTube. It's gonna be.
we'll keep it mainly like we'll keep a long version for like internal training and stuff, and then it can be like
I would post it.
huh?
You post it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
One of
Sure,
these
like
long
so
videos.
Yeah, we can do a we'll do a long version. We can do some small cuts from it or whatever. How much am I probably gonna do like 30,000 an hour?
But this is one of those videos people would watch through if they want to learn.
Also, people just like seeing progression.
Especially with the fucking Barber.
Happy little trees. We're going to take some titanium white.
Do like crimson orange. Roomba orange.
Ah, yes. And we're going to finish it off with some burnt umber.
Burnt umber. No gimbal today? Don't need that shit anymore.
I sold it.
Uh-huh.
He seriously doesn't need it anymore.
Should have told I would have bought it.
Sold it to my friend so that I could still use it sometimes.
Oh, we would have never let you use it.
Yeah, right.
So this part again, you can do it sitting down or you can do it standing up. Just for the, you could call this like the parietal ridge of the beard, I suppose. So tilt the head back and then just turn. And it's going to show you where the jaw and the chin meet. So this is another magic shape that you can make in someone's head that's really going to make them go from rags to riches. So it's too far down here, so you want to cut that off.
Doing some fucking Wolverine.
You could. Okay, that's good. I'm gonna do that on the other side. So I'm just gonna go back and turn. Okay, and then we do the chin. Yeah.
Since we're doing beard tie, like always one trick to know what to do with the beard. Always ask: are you maintaining your beard? Are you like shortening your beard, or are you growing it out? Because depending on the answer, you're not gonna treat the beard like the same way. For example, if they have a rigidly short beard and they want to grow it out, well, you're gonna need to get that line down and down and down for them to be able to grow it. So if you just trim it super sharp and tight here, and they want to grow their beard, it's never going to happen. So in that case, you're growing out your beard, well, we're going to cheat it down a bit. And like every time they come, like I always explain to my clients, like we're going to get the line down, it's going to look weird, we'll let it grow, we're going to let it down, we're going to let it grow, and then I have guys that started with zero beard.
It's your only line you'll have now. No more double line.
It's that like hair grows down and then it grows up. And then when those hair that grow up, then eventually gets long enough, flip and act as a support. But when they want to grow a beard, often they're in that transition period where this is not long enough to flip and it's sticking out. And they want you to cut it. But if they want to grow their beard to a thick and bushy beard, like you have to like explain to them what it does and what it's going to do down the road, and to not touch that. Same thing, like if you want to shorten, you can like move it up, But asking those for that question is gonna just line you in the right direction, and you're gonna be able to provide an explanation that nobody else is gonna take the time to do. Same thing with the mustache. There's guys that they want to cover their upper lip because they have crooked teeth, it changes their face or whatever. So if somebody has like a big bushy mustache, like down their lip, I always ask, like, do you want to cover the lip or you want to cut it on top? Because if they want to cover the lip and you just clean it up and you're doing like that's what you think they need, they're gonna hate you, but they're not gonna come back. So like I found out like these two things, like cover the lip or on top of the lip, and then
Where's your ear
with the
bleeding?
beards, you're
Why was your ear bleeding?
maintaining or growing.
I
It's
don't
gonna
know.
point you in the right
Okay.
direction right away, and they're
You got
gonna
blood on your
appreciate the
ear.
fact that, like, you just
Really?
asked the question.
Yeah. It's
Poke him in the ear.
yeah. No, it's dried. It's been there for a minute.
The same thing for longer beards. If they want to grow it out, by example, they're always going to ask for you to fade it down. But on thick and long beard, anything that's under that bone here, you try not to touch it the least as possible. Because these hair are the ones that are going to fill the gap here. I had my beard down to here at some point, and
What do you think?
I had to, like, this was always down too much. You need
Yeah.
to get these guys.
And there's your beard. So I just kind of trimmed it up just a little bit,
If
like
you're
nothing
blending
crazy.
down, you're always gonna just have
that-
like a fucking,
Hmm.
pointy, like
Cool.
goatee that you don't do much about.
Clean up the back of your neck.
What?
You wanna
Clean up
keep
the
it
back
as
of your
high
neck.
as possible, but you have to explain the why, because they're gonna want you to cut it off.
I'm going to clean up the neck
You're gonna
first.
see a huge difference after 6 months down the road.
Well, I mean, yes, pretty much, but
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
no haircut is finished without cleaning up the back of the neck, because this is usually the most annoying spot out of anyone who comes to get a haircut. It's either the back of the neck or around the ears. And then I always use this to finish it. I don't use the lather and a razor much these days, because I find that it irritates people a lot and gives them ingrown hairs. So I just always do this. Gets just as close, just with little to no irritation or ingrowns. And some of the good stuff. Liquid gold. Close your eyes up.
Already done.
That'll take you where you need to go. It's fucking amazing. Absolutely amazing. And that's a haircut. Oh shit. Oh shit.
Go for it. It's filming still.
Is it?
If I point that, whoa. Okay, I need a smile, I need something, not a fucking.
No, I want him to look mad as fuck all the time.